The Puck Portfolio with Andy MacNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio. It is Thursday, June 13th. We are just a little bit away from Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final. Goes tonight in Edmonton. The Florida Panthers and the Oilers. Of course, the Panthers leading the Cup Final 2-0. So Edmonton is looking to become just the sixth team in NHL history to overcome an 0-2 series deficit in the Stanley Cup Final. 7 teams have taken a 2-0 series lead in the Stanley Cup Final since 2012, and all 7 have gone on to win the Stanley Cup. Of course, the last 2 teams, the 2009 Pittsburgh Penguins and the 2011 Boston Bruins, are the last 2 teams to overcome an 0-2 series deficit. Before that, 1971, Jake's Montreal Canadiens. And speaking of that, Jake, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Doing good. I'm not feeling as good about the Oilers, but I got my Habs shirt on and it's dark blue, so I felt I'd bring a little bit of solidarity for my fellow Canadian team, and they're going to be
It's
wearing dark blues tonight.
really
So
embodying that Boston pizza commercial that we've seen way too much of throughout the
yeah,
NHL
yeah.
playoffs. Cheering for the fellow Canadian team.
Yeah, the Oilers were never a team that I minded having success. I know that there's various fan bases that disagree with me. Certainly further west of here, but were the Oilers to make this a series, I certainly would be into that.
Well, you know what they say. It's not a series until the home team or a team loses at home, and the Edmonton Oilers have not lost the home game yet. They are 6-3 on home ice, and they have scored at least 2 goals in all 9 home games this postseason. That's something they haven't done yet versus the Florida Panthers. It'll be interesting to see if the Oilers can overcome Sergei Bobrovsky tonight, who has shut out the Oilers once in Game 1. Of course, the Panthers won Game 2 by a score of 4-1. That comeback win was Florida's 7th of the postseason, the 40th of the postseason overall, which is the most through 83 games in a single playoff. So no lead has been safe in the NHL playoffs, and I would expect that to be the case in this series going forward. Still waiting kind of for one of these games to really just open up and these teams to score a bunch of goals, because the stars on both teams have really yet to shine. It's been Evan Rodriguez that scored 3 goals for the Panthers. He leads the series in scoring right now. Of course, Matthias Ekholm is the only player to score a goal for the Oilers in the Stanley Cup Final so far. Shout out to Michael Leboff for calling Ekholm first goal scorer at 50-1 heading into Game 2 right here on the Puck Portfolio. Leboff always knows how to pick out those long shot bets when you least expect it, and he did it again on Thursday's episode of the Puck Portfolio. Or I guess that was Monday. What am I saying? Monday's episode. It's been a weird week. Couple of days off of doing the show. Of course, the big story coming out of Game 2 was Sasha Barkov suffered an injury after taking an elbow to the jaw from Leon Draisaitl. Missed the final 9:28 of the game. I think the hit was what it was, a guy that was frustrated and mad that he was losing, and trying to take a pound of flesh before the clock ticked off. How did you see the Barkov Draisaitl incident, Jake?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like it's a kind of a steamroller hit. It's Draisaitl adding a little bit more, frustration than maybe he should have. Obviously the primary contact is the head, but I don't know if I would call it a headshot. I don't know. It's weird. It's the circumstances. I think it's something that definitely would have warranted a suspension in the regular season. But as we've seen in the playoffs, very, very little warrants a suspension. Maybe if Dressel had shot Barkov or something, then he would get suspended. But otherwise, yeah, it's just playoff hockey. It seems, as Brad Marchand said earlier, everybody's out there trying to hurt everybody else.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, we've seen Sam Bennett take a number of liberties with players. Evan Bouchard kind of went yeah, awkwardly into him, into the net too, on one play that was kind of a needless play. The puck had already gone. Guys are just trying to hurt each other out there, and it's pretty apparent in this series. But regardless, the Panthers are now a minus 455 series favorite over at NorthStar Bets. Of course, NorthStar Bets has sponsored this show pretty much all season long, and it's been a great a great partnership that is coming to an end. But you can check out North Star Bets via the link uh, under this in the description below if you're watching on YouTube, and check out all the stuff that we have over at CanadaSportsBetting.ca. But yeah, the Oilers coming back on the other side at plus 355 to win the Stanley Cup. I've seen them as high as 4-1, maybe even a little bit higher at some shops. So the models, my model, Money Puck, Dom Lucian from the Athletic, and the betting market all pretty much agree that this series has gone from a coin flip, which is what most people thought it was coming into the series, to about an 80-20 split in favor of the Panthers. Now up 2-0. Of course, as I mentioned off the top of the show, only 5 teams have come back from an 0-2 deficit in the Stanley Cup final. Has happened twice since 2009, but has not happened in the last 12 years. Teams that go up 2-0 in the Stanley Cup playoffs all time in best of 7 series have a record of 352 and 56, which is about an 86% winning percentage. So yeah, pretty tough. But I do think the Oilers are going to make a series out of this. Hopefully, they can play the way that they played in game 1, more or less, and leave a lot of the bad stuff from game 2 behind. One thing that really stood out to me, talked a little bit about it in game number 1, and just about how when you look at the stat sheet at the end of the game, if you bet on the Edmonton Oilers, you want to see Zach Hyman, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Even you want to see those guys at the top of the category for shots on goal, shot attempts, etc. But Edmonton's defensemen have been taking the majority of the shots so far in the series. 62 shots for the defensive players, while there have been 55 shot attempts generated by the forward group. You look at game 1, it was Bouchard with 16 shot attempts and Ekholm with 10 shot attempts in game 1. And in game 2, it was Bouchard again with 9 and Brett Kulak up there with 8. And only 6 of those shot attempts in both games from those 4 defensemen have been scoring chances, according to Natural Stat Trick. And I think that is, not as much by design as it is kind of out of necessity, trying to get some shots, because the Panthers have made it very tough for the Edmonton Oilers to get to the slot, to get to the high danger area. Edmonton did a good job in game number 1. High danger chances at 5-on-5 were 13-6 in favor of the Oilers, but 4-0 in favor of the Panthers in game number 2. So Edmonton still did a good job preventing Florida from getting to the slot at 5-on-5 for the most part. They have allowed 2 high danger goals in this series, but they've held the Panthers to just 10 high danger shots in 2 games. Yeah, they've got a 19-16 edge currently in high danger chances in all situations. But like I said, 18 of those high danger chances came in game number 1, because the Panthers held a 10-1 edge in that category in game number 2. So that's going to have to change. The Oilers need a lot more from their forward group. Jake, I was talking about this a little bit before we got started, and in rounds 2 and 3, obviously the Oilers also started those series on the road. Their forwards generated 76 shot attempts in the first 2 games versus Vancouver. They generated 89 shot attempts in the first 2 games versus the Dallas Stars. down to 55 in this first two games versus the Florida Panthers. Meanwhile, those 62 shot attempts by Oilers defensemen so far in this series are up from both rounds 2 and 3 also. So bit of a shift in how the Oilers are playing, and I think it has a lot to do with just how the Panthers are smothering Edmonton at 5-on-5, making it really tough to gain the zone. I mean, Edmonton's really struggling when McDavid and Draisaitl and Bouchard and those guys aren't on the ice. So yeah, it's been a struggle for the Oilers. I don't think that travel had much to do with it because they played so well in game number 1 in terms of puck possession and whatnot. They really dominated the Panthers in the first 40 minutes. So it'll be interesting to see, though, with Florida being a bit behind on travel, opted not to show up in Edmonton a day early. Instead, chose to fly in the day before, and then were held up for 3 to 4 hours at the Florida airport due to a severe storm. Got into Edmonton last night. I would imagine at a reasonable hour because of the time change. They've gained a couple of hours, but still might have some effect on the Panthers. Maybe a bit sluggish tonight. Looks like Alexander Barkov will be in the lineup. They have not confirmed anything, but Paul Maurice saying yesterday that he skated and looked good, and I think he is penciled in tentatively right now. But yeah, from a betting perspective, Jake, would you be surprised to know that Edmonton's received a little bit of support last game and is still kind of receiving some support this game?
No, I mean I think that there's been trends, like you said in game one, and certainly there's some outside of the rink trends in terms of Florida's travel and the Barkov injury and the shot share and things like that. So it doesn't surprise me too much that there's some love, there's some betting love towards Edmonton, and we can see that potentially snowball with a win tonight. But no, it doesn't shock me too much.
Yeah, no, it doesn't shock me either, especially with the Oilers, having their backs against the wall. I mean, really, their backs are against the wall. You go down 3-0 in the Stanley Cup final, and you are um, pretty much out of it at that point. Edmonton, I don't know what NorthStar opened up at. I wasn't paying attention at that time, but I know that Pinnacle Sports opened up at minus 117 on following game 2 in terms of the Oilers money line in game number 3, and they are now. I don't know why I can't find it in the on the odds screen, but the minus 135. So the Oilers have moved from minus 117 at open all the way up to minus 135. In game number 1, they entered as a plus 120 underdog. They entered game 2 after they were shut out, but a pretty strong performance. They entered game 2 as a plus 105 underdog, and now another line move in Edmonton's direction heading into game number 3. So the Oilers getting a little bit of love from the betting market. My best bet for today is a small bet. I'm looking for Leon Draisaitl to make something happen. I haven't seen what other people have seen. There's been some talk. For instance, I listened to the 32 Thoughts podcast, but with Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick, and Friedman, was suggesting that Draisaitl is playing through an injury or something like that. We've seen him play through plenty of injuries in the past. He's been productive throughout those stretches. If he is playing through something, that doesn't necessarily worry me all that much. I think he's still been a force out there at times. He still looked good skating and whatnot. It's been tough. It's been tough to get the looks, but I think, looking at Draisaitl, he's generated at least 3 shots on goal in 7 out of 9 games at home this postseason. He's also put up a point in all 9 games at home this postseason. You can get a competitive price on his shots on goal total, over 2.5 shots on goal at minus 125. I believe that is the best price out there right now on Draisaitl. Most sports books have him up at minus 135, if not higher. Just to double check. Yeah, minus 130, minus 135, minus 143. So yeah, minus 125 on Draisaitl to go over 2.5 shots on goal. That's available at NorthStar Bets. And like I said, Evan Rodriguez right now leading the series in goals with 3. None of the Oilers stars have any goals. None of the Panthers stars really have any goals. I don't think outside of Carter Verhaeghe has his 10th of the playoffs. So, not a lot going on right now. It is very possible that a player like McDavid or Draisaitl can still, finish this series with the most goals or most points. So, Draisaitl coming up around 10-1, I believe, to finish with the most goals. Around, I think, plus 550 or plus 650 actually to finish with the most points. So, those something to consider heading into tonight. If you think that the Oilers are going to make a series out of this, then it's very possible that one of those players could still finish with the most points or the most goals, even in a losing effort. I think at the end of the day. So I haven't made really any bets outside of Draisaitl to go over 2.5 shots on goal. I might look to make a bet on the over if things continue to trend in the direction that they are trending in. But right now, the over, while it is, I believe, currently minus 103 at NorthStar Bets. Yes, minus 103 over 5.5. It has gotten up to as high as plus 111 at one Canadian sports book. So I'm starting to really consider that because I mean we had this over 5.5 total open up around minus 115 in game 1. In game 2 it was down to minus 105. Game 3 opened up around even money, had kind of come up a bit, and now we're seeing it at plus 111 at some sports books. So that's starting to interest me, and yeah, I think that's about the only other thing outside of maybe an in-game look here because I still think we're going to see at least one wild one in this series. Too many good players for there not to be some excitement. We've seen one comeback win. We've seen 7 from the Panthers already this postseason. That was the 5th game that the Oilers have lost after holding a lead in the postseason. So yeah, both of these teams very much fit the profile of the type of teams that could trade the lead in game 3 or game 4. It's going to be a wild one here in Edmonton, but pretty much sums up my thoughts on the game. I mean, Sergei Bobrovsky, he's going to win the Conn Smythe Trophy unless something really changes here. He's minus 200. Minus, actually, is he minus 200? I've been looking at a lot. Yeah, he is minus 200 currently to win the Conn Smythe. Barkov 5-1, and McDavid next at plus 550. But yeah, it's Bobrovsky's trophy to lose, so it would it's kind of kind of gotten boring to talk about the Conn Smythe Trophy betting market. Somebody might disagree, but for me, not much interest there. Draisaitl over 2.5 shots, minus 125 available at NorthStar Bets. Might consider the over 5.5 if it gets up any higher here. But yeah, some betting trends before we close it out. The home team 39 and 44, 47% this postseason. Edmonton, as I mentioned, has gone 6-3 straight up at Rogers Place in the playoffs, while the Panthers are 6-2 as the home team. Florida's comeback win. I already talked about that. What am I saying? Out of the 83 games this postseason, 50 of them have been decided by one goal. That jumps to 72 out of the 83 if we include games in which the empty net goal got tacked on at the end. Haven't seen a one-goal game yet in this series. Wouldn't be surprised if we did. The Panthers have played a lot of one-goal games in the playoffs, as have the Oilers. And since 2021, this according to Action Labs, the total in games 1 to 4 are 60, 47, and 2. That's 55% to the over, compared to just 38, 15, and 2, 69% to the under in games 5 and 7. So still a pretty positive trend to the over in these early series games. It'll be interesting to see how this one plays out because, like I said, the Stars have not been a factor yet. Leon Draisaitl doesn't have a point in the series, has scored a point in 8 out of 9 games at Rogers Place in these playoffs. Connor McDavid, he's averaged 25 minutes or more in each of the first 2 games versus Florida. He's got 1 assist, 9 shots on goal for his troubles. I think we could see a big ice time game tonight. I mean, this is everything, right? You've got to win this game. It's a must win. I know that's so cliche, and it's not technically it's not a must win, but I mean, it's a must win. So I think we could see, you know, 30 plus minutes from McDavid tonight and some of the other Stars, and rightfully so. It's their last shot to get back in this thing and really have a chance. McDavid entered the Cup final having scored 3 goals and 11 assists in the 10 games prior. He's gotten over 3.5 shots in 5 out of his last 10 games, including once this series. So he has been he's pretty active. Matthew Tkachuk has not been active though. He hasn't scored in 7 games. He hasn't registered a point in his last 4 games. He's got just 2 goals in his last 16 games this postseason. Sam Bennett and Carter Verhaeghe lead the Panthers with 4 goals and 8 points over the past 10 games. Yeah. Jake, any other? We got some other NHL news that we might as well talk about before we get out of here, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. There's the surprising sort of appointment of former Leaf great Alexander Steen as GM or future GM of the St. Louis Blues, taking over in 2026. And we were talking about how maybe that at least in my opinion it's jumping the gun. He spent 1 season as the Blues European scout. No doubt that they had intended to groom him into the role, but like I was saying before the show, I think it's a bit of a jump the gun moment. And I might be biased, but we're watching Bill Zito's team having tremendous success. I've been admiring what Kent Hughes is doing in Montreal. I'm kind of moving away from the former player as GM being able to have a lot of success in the modern NHL. So, we'll see what happens with the St. Louis Blues, but that's sort of my read on it, that it's too soon and probably the wrong guy.
Yeah, you're big Dubas guy, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Big Eric Tulsky guy. But yeah, when was he named general? Just looking, so many pop-ups. Jeez. Just looking at elite prospects here. Doug Armstrong was named general manager of the Blues in 2010 in the offseason, July 1st. So he's sticking around. It looks like signs an extension through 28, 29. So do you think this is a thing? Like, obviously, it is weird that Steen has gotten this opportunity, given he has, zero front office experience outside of the, year he spent as a European scout. But do you think this is just a situation where Armstrong's going to be sticking around and grooming him for the next, 3 or 4 years and kind of showing him the ropes, and maybe he won't have as much control as he does, on the surface, behind the scenes?
Yeah, we've seen similar things with Joe Sakic and Masai Ujiri here closer to home, where they're
Wait,
not.
Joe Sakic mentored Masai Ujiri?
Yeah, when Joe Sakic groomed Masai Ujiri for the role, no, they sort of move into the president, but they're still sort of considered like GM, half of a GM, or are still kind of um, in on a lot of the decision making. This seems to me like a situation where Doug Armstrong, sort of wanted to retire from being GM. They wanted Steen to be the GM of the future, but didn't want to hire a GM for whatever 2 years, whatever it was, to replace Doug Armstrong. So Doug Armstrong says, "I'm going upstairs. I'm kind of done with this. I want to do 50% of the work that I've been
Yeah,
doing, and make probably even more money." But
yeah,
yeah,
for
I don't know.
sure.
It's odd.
Yeah, I mean, I do think I think a lot more goes on uh, with different roles. I don't think necessarily the people that are in the roles always call as many of the shots as we think they do. Listening to the 32 Thoughts podcast with Freege and Merrick earlier yesterday, and they were talking about how throughout the process of Carolina interviewing candidates for their open GM position, Don Waddell, of course, going to the Columbus Blue Jackets to fill their open GM position. But apparently, a lot of the candidates weren't happy with the way that things were going to be in Carolina. Not sure if that was happy is the right word, but they weren't okay with the fact that they would be, both mostly information gatherers and whatnot, and it'd be Eric Tulsky, the assistant GM, making all the decisions about player personnel and what's not. Right, so they ended up going with Tulsky because they didn't want to lose him, according to Freege. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. Um, and we do have some news out of Columbus, on top of their new GM Don Waddell, and that's Patrick Laine. Sounds like his days as a Blue Jacket are numbered. Looks like he has requested a trade, and the team is probably going to help him facilitate that. It's by the sounds of things. Jake, Line to Montreal. Do you like the sounds of that? Are you a fan of that, or would you rather the Canadians, look for other options? They are in the market for a winger, right?
They are, yeah, and names like Martin Necas and Trevor Zegras have certainly been floating around for the past couple of months. Yeah, Liney's name has been out there certainly since he went into the player assistance program, and has had a pretty spotty record in Columbus in terms of the things that he's able to do. And then prior to the show, I was telling you that there's sort of a prevailing wisdom in Montreal that Marty St. Louis is sort of a player doctor right now, that he can get into a kid's head like that and sort of turn him around. So in terms of a reclamation project, I'm down for it. And then plus there's the acquisition cost of star players that are for whatever reason available on their teams, an acquisition cost that maybe a rebuilding Habs team is not willing to pay. So the idea of getting a guy who's probably overpaid for what he's doing right now, but only signed for 2 years, and then seeing what happens, and then maybe after 2 years, the team's ready to compete, and then you make a decision on lining. I'm down. I'm down for the gamble, but it is it's hard not knowing exactly what his sort of demons are. Um, I think a lot of people wish there was more clarity on that, but the talent and the size of the player is just it's just a little too tantalizing to not want to take a chance on.
Yeah, no, for sure. He definitely has the potential to be one of the top goal scorers in the NHL. When he's on his game, he's super fun to watch. His skill uh, would definitely be appreciated by the Montreal fan base. But then at the same time, I think Montreal might be a pretty bright spotlight for him if he is having troubles with the public aspect of being a professional hockey player, because I think I'm not sure exactly, like you said, there hasn't been a lot of information, and we don't I mean frankly it's none of our business, but um it sounds like there was some maybe anxiety towards just being a professional athlete in general, and being in the public spotlight to the level that he has been. So maybe Montreal is not the best place. Good family environment like the Boston Bruins, probably somewhere that can really they look after him, class of the class in terms of locker rooms in the NHL. I think there's definitely a case to be made for that, but But yeah, we don't need a winger. We need a center. So he has played center and he's looked good at times, but I don't think he's the next Patrice Bergeron by any means. So, but yeah, back to the Stanley Cup final for a minute, because I don't think I actually mentioned my series projection at this point, but I've got the Edmonton Oilers winning the Stanley Cup final about 19% of the time. So pretty grim for the Oilers. The Panthers got an 81% chance at getting this thing done, most likely in 6 games, but 5 games. So at least the Oilers fans won't have to, hopefully not have to watch a team celebrate a Stanley Cup championship on the ice at Rogers Place, like they did in 2020. No fans in the building that year, but yeah, it'd be pretty sad if 2 Stanley Cup championships have been handed out in this. Oh no, did they go to Toronto? Did they go to Toronto, or were they in Edmonton for the? They were in Edmonton for the final, weren't they? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just rambling at this point. Anyway, you look at it, the Oilers are screwed. Hopefully, they'll make a series out of it, so we have more stuff to talk about, more games to bet on. Maybe we'll feel differently about Edmonton after Game 3. Maybe we'll feel even more differently after Game 4. But we'll be back to recap everything that happens tonight on tomorrow's live stream at 1 p.m. with Nick Martin from the Action Network's Line Change podcast. So check out them and check out us tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time on the Canada Sports Betting YouTube channel and on X at Can Sport Betting, where you're watching it right now, probably, because I know a lot of you are watching it on Twitter. Anyway, I'm Andy MacNeil. Thanks for joining the show. Drop a like on the video, share it with your friends, leave a comment. We will get to it if it's interesting. And we'll see you tomorrow for the live stream. Good luck with your bets and enjoy the game.